Recording in progress.
Hello everyone, very good afternoon to all of you. Hope you have read the topic which we have studied last time. We started with Sale of Goods Act, Unit 1, and we have completed just a small portion of it. Today we will complete the first unit, that is formation of the contract of sale. So if there are any doubts, we will take it all at the end. But just a quick revision we'll start with, and then whatever details are there, we will just continue with the chapter. Okay, so I'll just share my screen. Just let me know if it is visible. Is my screen visible to all of you? Okay, okay. So what we have to start with today is the revision first of all, and then we will discuss all the relevant details which are there in the unit 1. So I hope you all now know why this Sale of Goods Act is introduced. So basically it is introduced to discuss the provisions of uh, any kind of thing which is related to the sale of goods. So firstly, we must understand what are goods, and then second most important thing is what is sale. Okay. So whatever questions are there, I'll take it up at the end. That is for sure. Most of your doubts will be cleared up by then. So we will quickly start with this session. So let us quickly recall whatever you have read. So what is the scope of Sale of Goods Act? We will be discussing it in this chapter. Basically, it is for the movable goods only. For the immovable goods or immovable properties like land, if you sell the land, which act will be applicable? It is Transfer of Property Act. So for the sale and purchase of flats or any kind of building, that is considered under Transfer of Property Act and not the Sale of Goods Act. So whatever is movable goods, that is only considered here, and on that only the provisions of Sale of Goods Act shall be applicable. Important definitions we had studied that day also, but today again we will take that up along with the examples so that you will learn in a better way. Next is meaning of contract of sale. So again, this section will be very important. Contract of sale, it is under section 4. So it will have the complete detail, what is sale, what is agreement to sell. But at this point of time, you must understand contract of sale is a wider term. ये एक बड़ा term है. It includes sale, it includes agreement to sell. So if I make an equation, it will be like contract of sale is equal to sale plus agreement to sell. Okay, so it will be sale plus agreement to sell. So we will discuss that also later. So I'm just quickly telling you what all topics we will be covering today. So difference between sale and agreement to sell, that is a very common question which is asked in the examination, and we have to be thorough with this. Then there are other differences also. We will differentiate between sale and hire purchase, sale and bailment. So all that also we will discuss in this chapter, and then how to form this contract of sale. So what are the essential elements to form this contract of sale? Likewise, as you have studied in your Contract Act also, what are the basic requirements or what are the essential elements to form this contract? We will discuss that in detail. Then the subject matter of contract of sale, obviously that is goods. So until unless there are goods, we will not consider it in this topic. So the subject matter, wherever it asks you about the subject matter, it is the main content or the main thing for which the whole topic revolves, around which the whole topic revolves. So the subject matter in this Sale of Goods Act is basically the goods, right? And the sale of it, obviously. Next is rules relating to ascertainment of price, how the price is ascertained. So section 9 we will discuss, and simultaneously we will discuss section 10 also. So regarding the scope of the act, this act applies to contracts relating to sale of goods and all. We have already studied, these were the sections. Here, just a small correction. So section 2(8), 2 clause 8 defines insolvent person. So this is what we have to understand. And 2 clause 9, it defines mercantile agent. So last time also we discussed these definitions. So I'll be taking up it in detail later on in the slides. So from here we have to start. Let us start with this example. So let us assume that Rohit is a student who walked into the book world, which is a bookstore, to buy a laptop for his online classes. Though the name of the store is Book World, but still there are a lot of books as well as laptops are also sold here. Never mind. So the first point or the first screenshot which you see here or the first picture which you see here is the meeting between buyer and the seller. These two people, who is buyer, who is seller. So when a person enters into the shop, he's obviously in the capacity of a buyer, but whether he will become a buyer or not, so that depends on the definition which we have. Anyone remembers what is the section number for the definition of buyer and seller? Let me quickly have that in the chat box. Who remembers the definition of buyer section number? Section number 2-1. Correct. Samarth is right. Sandeep has also mentioned. Then Pragati, Dakshita, very nice. And what about seller? Definition of seller is contained in which section? Vishnu has mentioned 213. That is correct. So we must, whenever we are referring to these terms, we should understand that we have to simultaneously talk about the sections also so that we learn them simultaneously. Okay. So when they are meeting, so he's saying that I want to buy a laptop. How much does that cost? So he's asking that. The shopkeeper there, he's saying that it costs 60,000, which is a great choice. You have made a great choice and all. So this is a kind of invitation to offer. Let us just compare this whole scenario with your Indian Contract Act. So whenever a person is asking someone, he is making the invitation to offer that I may, I am interested to buy this laptop, how much that cost and all. So he's inviting offer from the other party. So the seller here is giving the offer. He's saying that I am ready to sell it at 60,000. That is how it is done. So next, the next picture, if you see here, is Rohit here says that, okay, sir, I'll take it. And the shopkeeper, which is Mr. Mehta, he says that, great, then I'll make a bill or I'll just invoice it for you. And here, what we see is if we compare it to the Indian Contract Act, here the offer is finally accepted. Why the offer is accepted? Because the terms and conditions, what were the terms and conditions? Like the amount, the model, everything that is being discussed between these parties, and they have agreed to the things. So offer is now accepted, and here the contract is formed. So then after offer, we have promise, and then finally we have the agreement and contract. So the final stage is the contract is formed here. Here we will call it a contract of sale. Okay. So the third picture here talks about the payment. So what is the price, what is the payment, and how the payment is made. So here he is giving cash. If you can see, he has made the payment in cash. So there is the option to make the cash payment. You can even pay online. You can even have it on credit. So it depends how these two parties finally agree to the terms and conditions. So for the time being, let us just understand it in very simple terms that the amount which is decided is already agreed by both the parties, and the payment, whether it is made then and there or at a deferred time, does not matter. Okay, for the contract of sale, it does not matter when the payment is being made. So payment terms are altogether read and dealt differently, but for the time being, it is mentioned that it is a contract of sale. And if we categorize it at sale only, because the goods here, if you see, they are specific goods, they are identified goods. He had selected the laptop, the final model he has already selected, he has chosen it for himself, and that is the thing which he wants to purchase. So that is a selected thing, or that in the terms of sale of goods act, we will call it the specific goods. He has taken the specific goods, the goods which were existing, and they were specially identified and agreed upon at the time of contract of sale. So that therefore we call it therefore we call it sale. So within the contract of sale also, we will bifurcate it into two things. One is sale and the other is agreement to sell. So for the time being here, since everything is decided there and then, the goods are also existing. Therefore, we can say that it is sale. Okay. So therefore, it is mentioned here also that the price 60,000 he has already paid, as a money consideration. So anyone can tell me what is the section number for the price? What is the section for the price? Anyone remembers what is the definition of the price? Price means the money consideration. And if you remember the section number also, 210, Samarth has mentioned. Anyone else? 210, Dakshita. Oh, section 10 is not correct. Section 10 you have, quoted from the maybe in the Indian Contract Act. Section 10 there it was important. 2 clause 10, that is important. In brackets you have to mention 10. Okay. And all the definitions are there in section 2 only, right? So you have to mention it fully. Fine. So let us proceed. So finally, here can we say that the seller is unpaid seller? Has full payment been made to the seller? Has full payment been made to the seller? Quickly tell me. Yes, full payment has been made. Suppose here if Rohit had just paid him 30,000, then what? In that case, whether the seller is considered as unpaid seller? Okay, some people are saying yes, some people are saying no, half paid. So whether he will be considered as an unpaid seller or not. So again, we have to see the definition of unpaid seller to understand it better. And that we will see in chapter 4 or unit 4 rather to mention. So right now I'll not disclose the suspense whether he will be termed as an unpaid seller if only half amount is paid. So your queries will be resolved when you will study unit 4. So that is what you need to think about at that point of time. So, okay, for the time being, who is buyer, who is seller? You have got the idea. What are goods here? Goods is the laptop basically, and the price consideration you have already seen the price consideration money which has transferred. The amount which is beside this 60,000. So that is what you have to understand. What about the ownership? Who will have the ownership? Who will have the ownership? Ownership of what? Laptop. Who will be the owner of the laptop? So everyone, Sri Pragati, Dakshita, Gaurav, all of you have mentioned it correctly. Buyer will be the owner. If it is a case of sale, buyer is always the owner of the goods, and whosoever is the owner of the goods, it is always his risk. So what is the risk involved here? Suppose at the time when he's leaving from the shop, and meanwhile when he's moving back to his home, uh, there is some thief on the road and he just steals his laptop, then whatever loss has happened to him will be purely the loss of the buyer. That is, Rohit will bear the loss. He cannot say anything to the this seller. He cannot say anything to the seller. So, what is Sandeep saying? Buyer, because risk follows the ownership. Correct. So, firstly, if you are very much uh, or if you are very much understanding the fact that whosoever is the owner will bear the loss. That is the rule. Whosoever is the owner will bear the loss, or he will have the risk, because the rule is risk follows the ownership. So again and again, these things will, come up. So we have to be very thorough in understanding who is actually the owner. So just make a note of it. In case of sale, buyer is the owner. In case of sale, buyer is the owner. However, if it was a case of agreement to sell, then in that case, seller would have been the owner, because the ownership will pass on some future date. Ownership in agreement to sell will pass on some future date. We will come across those examples also. So for the time being, we are okay with this, right? So I'm just moving forward. So here, if we can just split it up, section number is not written correctly. It was just to get from you, basically, what is the exact section number. So I have intentionally put the wrong ones there. So never mind. The definition. What is the definition of buyer? We have already studied this. Buyer means a person who buys or agrees to buy. Then seller means a person who sells or agrees to sell. So both the components are very important, whether then and there he is buying or selling, and if he is entering into any contract for future also. So whether he is agreeing to buy, so that is also considered here, right? Both the persons, I mean, both at both the point of time, these are considered as buyer and seller. So a person may become buyer or seller even before actual transfer takes place. So even though the goods have not actually passed on, persons can be classified as buyer or seller, right? So because in case of future goods, since the goods will be manufactured at a future date, still we can assume that one party is buyer and the other party is seller, right? The person who has ordered is obviously the buyer, and the other person who will be manufacturing and finally dispatching the goods is known as the seller. So person may become buyer and seller even before the actual transfer takes place if there is an agreement to sell or buy. So normally this agreement to sell will also have these two parties, buyer and seller. Okay. Next, what is the meaning of goods? So last time when we studied about this topic, we just took it in the very nutshell that the definition of goods contains three elements. It means, it includes, and it excludes. So there are three things in the same definition. So first thing, goods means. So it means what? Come on quickly in chat box. Goods means dash. What does goods means? First of all, the section we have to remember, it is 2.7. Good means immovable property or immovable goods basically are the immovable things. So goods means every kind of, movable properties other than. So what is not included? So what does it excludes? There are two things which are specifically excluded. What are those? So it excludes actionable claims and money. Why money is excluded? See, money, normally you can see that money is a movable property. आज मेरे पास है, कल किसी और के पास है, मैंने कुछ खरीदा तो मैंने किसी और को दिया. So it will keep on moving. Money normally moves from one place to another or one person to another basically. However, this has been specifically excluded क्योंकि money तो हम use कर रहे हैं to purchase anything. So when we are entering into a kind of a contract of sale, money is a kind of consideration which we give. So therefore, it is specifically excluded. And the next thing, actionable claims, we will discuss in detail. What do you mean by actionable claims? For the time being, you should understand any claim on which action can be taken is considered as actionable claim. But to understand it better, I will take up in the next slide. Okay, for the time being, just understand it excludes these two. Then what does it includes? It includes stock and shares. It includes growing crops, grass, or anything attached to land or forming part of the land if agreed to be severed before sale or under the contract of sale. So it is very simple to understand. The first part, it says that it includes stock and shares. So whenever you are dealing in shares, like in the share market, when we are purchasing and selling the shares, or when the company brings in IPO, you must have heard about this term, initial public offer. So when you are purchasing shares from the company, then also the Sale of Goods Act is applicable. And again, if we talk about any crops, any or grass or trees, when they are cut and fallen down, and that at that point of time they become the movable things, and then the Sale of Goods Act will be applicable if they are sold finally. So any growing crop, grass, or anything which is attached to or forming part of the land, if it is severed before the sale, then only it will be considered as a contract of sale. Fine. Next. So these are the final things which we must understand. Next is goods include both tangible goods and intangible goods. So a question may be asked here, what do you mean by intangible goods? So intangible goods are basically goodwill, copyright, patents, trademarks, all these things which you cannot touch, which you cannot see. These are also considered as goods because you can sell goodwill. You might have done the accounting entries for, giving away the goodwill. So that way, selling of goodwill, selling of copyrights, patents, trademarks can be considered under the Sale of Goods Act itself. Then it is also mentioned that stock and shares, gas, steam, water, electricity, and decree of the court are also considered to be goods. Can anyone tell me water and electricity, how they are considered as goods? Yes, they move, but still, so there should not be any confusion because how you can sell water? Can anyone sell water? Coal, petrol is also included. Yes, yes, everything, on everything, irrespective of its state or irrespective of its form. If you can sell that item, obviously that is considered as goods. Service is different. CAs and the doctors, these are professionals. So we do not sell any goods. We provide our services. So services are altogether different. On services, how taxation is done, GST is applicable on our services, right? So that is different. And normal contract act is applicable if we give our services. Bisleri bottles, correct. So water is sold in the form of bottles. Then gas like oxygen cylinders we have, and then LPG also we have. So all this is sellable in the market, right? And whenever you are selling these things, this contract of this sale of goods act provisions will be applicable. Okay. Till this point, are we okay? Should I explain now what do you mean by actionable claims? Should we discuss this actionable claims now? Just give me a quick yes. Okay. Okay. Okay, let us quickly understand one example so that you will understand it in a better way. What do you mean by actionable claim? Okay, so let us take an example where I had given I had given some person a loan. So I am the lender and the other person is borrower. So I had given him the money for 1 year. After 1 year, that person should have returned it to me, but he did not. So what is the benefit, or what is the right which is available to me? How can I recover the money from the other person? Any idea how can I recover the money from the other person? Decree of the court is Deepak, the decree of the court is finally the court order. Whatever order is given by the court, that is known as decree of the court, and that also is considered as goods. It will become technical if we go in detail, but for the time being, you can just understand that whatever order has been given by the court, that is also considered as goods, because we can transfer that also. Yes, so Sandeep is saying that I can recover my money, which is still due. The other party has not paid, so I can file a suit on the other person to recover that. So suppose I filed a case in the court, or simply saying I filed a suit for the other person on the borrower basically, and the court has given the decree. So decree is basically the order of the court. Okay, so I have finally got the decree, then it becomes the final order that yes, court is also saying that you can go and collect the money from the other person. Let us wait there. Let us understand first of all, what do you mean by claim here? What is claim? Since I have the right to claim the amount, suppose I paid 1 lakh rupees to the other person, so I can claim my money, right? But this claim can be made only through some action, only through some action. So action is by court. Only by the intervention of the court, I can get my claim. So because when I am asking, the other person is not paying to me. I tried several options, but he is not paying to me. So ultimately, because of the court intervention, I will get my claim back. So therefore, it is known as actionable claim, claim on which actions can be taken. That is in very general language. So let us discuss that in detail, how and whether why it should be considered as good and why it should not be considered as good. So I have the right to file a court case, right? I have the right to file a suit over the borrower. Is everyone okay with that? I have the right to buy a suit on the other party. Can I sell this right to anyone? Can I suppose I whenever I'll file the suit, I will receive 1 lakh, that is for sure. And with interest also I will receive. But suppose Mr. Ram has come to me and he has said that, why don't you just transfer your claim to me? I will recover it from my side. You don't bother. You don't go to court, because even I don't want to go to court. Why to bother about going to court again and again? So therefore, what I thought was, let me just hand it over to Mr. Ram. Mr. Ram gave me 80,000 then and there. So because it's okay, I was ready to take 80,000, not full amount. I negotiated and I just got 80,000. I was okay with it. And whenever he wants, he can recover it from the other party by any means, however he wants. So this actionable claim on which I mean, I had the right to claim it from the other person. I have transferred it to Mr. Ram. Since I have transferred it to Mr. Ram, it seems like it is a movable property, but it is excluded specifically from this particular thing. So therefore, it is mentioned that whenever you are transferring your actionable claim to someone else, transfer of property act will be applicable and not the sale of goods act, because a lot of things are attached to it. It is not a simple thing, it is a very complex thing. So whenever you are transferring this actionable claim, your right, you are transferring it to someone, then it basically is known as this on which act is applicable. Transfer of property act is applicable. Okay, so let us discuss it with some more examples, and then we will take up the questions. Just let me change the slide. Okay, actionable claims. So all movable properties are not goods, because actionable claim, though it seems like movable, it has been specifically excluded. So what is basically an actionable claim? An actionable claim is the right to claim money or enforce a debt. It is mentioned here, enforce a debt. How you can enforce a debt? Through court or any kind of your beneficial interest in a movable property by a legal action. Only if you can take a legal action, it becomes an actionable claim. So any claim which can be recovered through court only, that is known as actionable claim. When you are selling your actionable claim to any other person, at that point of time, even though it looks like movable property, it is out of the purview of Sale of Goods Act. Why? Because separate act is there to govern this kind of thing. Which separate act is there? Transfer of Property Act. So whenever this actionable claims are, purchased and sold, Transfer of Property Act shall be applicable. So it's a claim or a right to receive something and not a thing itself. So basically, rights have been transferred. I was eligible, I was, entitled to claim the money from the borrower. However, I transferred my right to someone else. Normally, banks also do this. They hire the recovery agents whenever they are not able to, collect their debts. They hire the recovery agents and then they do. If I talk about in simple language, वो हमने किसी भाई को अपॉइंट कर दिया है, वो रिकवरी करके हमें देगा. So that way, that kind of thing. So basically, that is the actionable claim. When you have transferred it to someone, the other party will have the right to take that amount from the other person. So what is the legal provision? Legal provision, we have already understood that actionable claims are expressly excluded from the definition of the goods. What are the various examples for us to understand? So whenever you are giving a debt to any person, to a stranger or to a friend, so that becomes an actionable claim, and it is not termed as goods if your friend or this person to whom you have transferred is not paying, because at that point you have a right to claim it by taking some kind of legal action. Okay. Second is insurance claim. So suppose you are claiming something from the insurance company. So that insurance claim, you are entitled to claim it from the insurance company by filing a suit. So that therefore it becomes an actionable claim. So here it is mentioned that you have a right to receive 50,000 from the insurance company. Your right to claim that amount becomes the actionable claim. Next is if there are any unpaid bills, or if there is any loan given by the bank, or suppose you have given the house on rent and the tenant is not paying you. Obviously, you can file a suit on the tenant and you can recover the money from him. And suppose if the landlord transfers his right to recover to someone else, that point of time, it becomes an actionable claim. Are we okay till here? Sandeep is asking, can I say that before order or decision of the court, it is like actionable claim which is excluded? Right, 100%. So till you have actually taken an action, it is an actionable. See, you can see that it is not finalized. It is still in the process. Okay. So why is it not goods? So in short, we should understand it is only a right to claim. It is not any particular thing. So it is only a right to claim. You have transferred your rights. So this is basically rights and not anything. Normally in goods, we will find that there is something which is transferred. Okay. It cannot be seen, touched or delivered in like physical goods. It can be enforced only through a court of law. Therefore, it is excluded from the definition of goods. So can actionable claims be sold? Yes, of course, actionable claims can be sold, and therefore Sale of Goods Act is not applicable. However, Transfer of Goods Act or transfer of property is applicable. So here, in case of actionable claims, we normally do not use the term that actionable claim is sold. It is normally said that we have assigned it to someone else. We have transferred it to someone else. Okay. So the other person is assignee. We are assigner and the other person is assignee. So all those terms will be discussed when you will, learn about Transfer of Property Act. So next, this is the simple crux of it, that right to claim is not same as goods. Obviously, it has been excluded from that particular thing. Okay. So let's move further. Now let us go for this topic, that is classification of goods. How will you classify the goods? Last time also we discussed that in a very, lucid manner. But today we will discuss it with a lot of examples, and therefore we need to understand each and everything very, very, very carefully. First and foremost important point which you all must know, that existing goods are always considered as sale. If the goods are existing, whatever contract you have entered into, it is termed as sale. But if you have entered into some kind of agreement which is for future goods, because the goods are not there, they will be produced. So future is involved, obviously. So there are some conditions attached to it. So transfer of ownership will not take place today itself, but on a future date. So whenever the ownership has been deferred, whenever the ownership has been, time of transfer of ownership has been deferred, it is normally considered as agreement to sell. Okay, so while studying this classification of goods itself, we must understand and we must be able to bifurcate between sale and agreement to sell also. And again, I'm saying here that whenever you find existing goods, it will be a case of sale, and whenever you have a case of future goods or contingent goods, it will be a case of agreement to sell. Okay. So here it is clearly mentioned that goods are broadly of three types: existing, future, and contingent. Normally, these contingent goods are a type of future goods only. Obviously, they are type of future goods. Their acquisition will depend on some future event, or which may or may not happen. Contingent event which may or may not happen. So, okay, existing goods are generally owned and possessed by the seller at the time of the contract. Suppose you want a mobile phone, you went to the shop, or just like in our example, the person went to the shop and the buyer went to the shop and just asked for the laptop, which was existing there at that point of time. And if you go to purchase books and all, that also is existing at that point of time. Okay, so that is existing. Future goods are basically those goods which will be manufactured or produced or acquired uh, after the contract is done. So they will be. So future tense is involved there. Again, existing goods is divided into three types in fact: specific, ascertained, and unascertained goods. Specific simply means the goods are existing there and then. So I'll take this one. Existing goods are the goods which are in existence at the time of the contract of sale and are owned, possessed, or acquired by the seller at that time. So these may be specific, ascertained, and unascertained goods. What are specific goods? Let us go by the definitions. Specific goods, it is defined in 2 clause 14. It says that these are the goods which are identified and agreed upon. So these are the two terms which you have to remember: identified and agreed upon at the time of the contract of sale is made. So both the buyer and seller have agreed to the terms, and the goods have been obviously identified. And since the ownership can be passed on there and then, it is a contract. It is termed as sales basically. Examples: a specified and finally decided mobile phone, like we want a particular model of Samsung Galaxy phone or something like that. And this is another example. A has 5 cars. However, he is agreeing to sell only the Centro car. So he has specified that this is what he has to sell. And the buyer has also agreed to purchase that. So that is why it is considered as specific goods. Suppose A says that out of 5 cars, I can sell any of the cars. So since it is not decided which one, then at that point of time, the goods are unascertained. And out of the unascertained, if you identify any one, then it becomes ascertained goods. So basically, if you talk in a broader sense, specific and ascertained are similar terms. I'm not saying same, they are similar terms. Specific, as the goods are there, identified and agreed at that point itself, directly it is identified. In ascertained, identification is done, but at some other point of time. Then and there, the identification is not done. It is done at a later point of time. Okay, so that is why it is somewhat different. Next, the goods are already clearly identified at the time of agreement. So this is the basic line which we must understand. Then you are able to distinguish between specific and other goods. What are basically ascertained goods? Ascertained goods are goods identified in accordance with the agreement after the contract is made. So once buyer and seller have agreed to other terms, then the goods will be identified. Suppose I go to the shop and ask the seller to give me 5 kg of wheat or wheat flour or anything, like I purchase sugar, 5 kg of sugar. So he has a big bag of sugar. However, it might be having, more than 20 kgs, but out of that, I want just 5 kg. So once we have decided that seller is ready to sell it to me, he has quoted me the price, I'm ready to pay. Then he goes there and, out of the big bag, he fills a small bag with the 5 kg of it. So he is separating from a bulk a smaller product. So that is how this ascertained goods is different from the specific goods. Okay, so the choice is made later on. A wholesaler has 100 bales of cotton and agrees to sell 50 bales to the buyer. When 50 bales are later separated or identified for the buyer, they become the ascertained goods. So what is the key idea? They are not identified at the beginning, but are identified later as per the terms and conditions of the contract. What do you mean by future goods? Section 2.6. So anybody notice something? Here we do not have any section number for this ascertained goods, right? But we have section for the future goods. So unascertained and ascertained are not defined anywhere. As such, there is no particular definition for them. So they have to be understood with the way they are explained, and there is no proper definition, section number basically. But for future goods, we have a proper definition. Future goods are the goods to be manufactured, produced, or acquired. These are the 3 terms. So either those goods will be manufactured, or those goods will be produced, or they will be acquired. Acquired means you will acquire it from someone and then sell it to the other person. So it all depends how the contract terms are done. Next, these are the examples: 1,000 quintals of potatoes to be grown. So farmer has entered into a contract today itself that 1,000 quintal of potatoes, I am ready to sell it to you after a month. Whenever they will be grown, I will sell it to you. So like that. All the milk that a cow may yield. So you don't know how much the cow may yield, but whatever it will, I will transfer it to you, or I will sell it to you. All the oranges that will be produced in the future season, I'll sell it to you. So like that. So what is the important point to be noticed here? A present sale of future goods cannot operate as a sale. It only operates as an agreement to sell. So it clearly mentions here that whenever there is there is a case of this future goods, we will not have sale, but we will have agreement to sell. Is it okay till this point of time? Samarth, you are asking about which example? Here, obviously, it is a case of agreement to sell. That is what we are saying. Okay. Next, contingent goods. Contingent goods are the goods, the acquisition of which depends upon some uncertain contingency. So we are not sure whether we will have those goods or not. So like I mentioned in the last class also, if there is an example here, we can take that up directly. A agrees to sell Picasso painting to B, provided that he is able to purchase it from the present owner. So there is a condition here. The condition is, if he is able to get it from the main owner, then only he will be able to give it to the other person. So you do not have the goods right now, and even the acquisition of the goods depend on some contingent event which may or may not happen, because the other person may agree, may not agree, we do not know. And hence, this kind of transaction which has entered into now, it is also known as agreement to sell, because there is only agreement which may materialize, which may not materialize. So agreement to sell may convert into sale, or it may not convert into sale. Okay. Okay, there's one more example. P contracts to sell 50 pieces of goods provided the ship reaches the port safely. So if the ship reaches, then only you will have your goods. Otherwise, you will not be having your goods. The seller's ability to supply depends on some uncertain event. And therefore, this insurance and all the things are there to safeguard the risk. Okay. Which one? This contingent also does not have section number. Very good. So you are noticing. So contingent goods is not defined. So only two kinds of, goods have their definition. First is obviously the original definition of goods, that is under section 2, clause 7. Then we have future goods. Future goods are defined in 2, clause 6. And then we have specific goods, which is defined under 2, clause 14. So these are the three main definition sections which we have. However, there are many other things which we have to read, even though there are no sections, right? Okay, let's check who can answer this one. Rahul orders an iPhone 16 Pro. Specification is already mentioned here that he needs 256 GB and black titanium is the model which he wants. He has ordered this online. He is ordering it on Amazon. So let me know you can how you can classify this goods. This iPhone, obviously it is goods, but it is specific, ascertained, unascertained, contingent, future. What do you think? What kind of? Okay, Gaurav is saying it is specific goods. Akshita is saying it is future goods. Harsh is saying it is contingent. Vishnu is saying specific goods. Okay, okay, whosoever is saying specific goods, can I know the reason why it is specific? Because ultimately you have to understand it by logic. Why you are classifying it as specific or why you are classifying it as future. Okay, let me just quickly know it know it from you. Will it be manufactured later on, or is it already there? Are the goods already there, or it will be manufactured later? Yes, the goods are already there. Therefore, you are able to choose. However, you are not able to choose the exact thing because you don't know what is lying in the godown of these Amazon and all. So they already have a stock. The stock is there. Sometimes they show that there is no stock. So if the stock is not there and if you are able to order and you will be delivered it later, that is a case of future goods, because the goods will be manufactured or acquired later on. But in this example, basically, when the goods are existing, firstly we must distinguish between existing and future. First you distinguish, then only you will be able to understand better. So first of all, it is not future goods because the goods are already existing. Are you there with me? Goods are existing. Once you say that goods are existing, then again you have to classify whether they are specific, unascertained, or ascertained. Or broadly, I can say you have to classify it under the category of specific or unascertained, because unascertained will finally be ascertained. So those two are the one and the same kind of. So these are specific or unascertained. So specific means you could identify this is the mobile phone. Can you, figure out which IMEI number? There is a specific unique number, or because the same model, it may have, a variety of pieces. It may have a lot of pieces. Same model will be available in various, there will be a variety of phones with the same model. There will be a lot of phones with the same model, but the IMEI code, which is there, that is unique. And if you are able to identify that, that is basically when you have identified. So that much precision is not there in selecting anything online. So therefore, what we can say is these are existing goods. However, usually Amazon does not identify which exact phone will be shipped. So out of the lot, they can find out any one and then they can ship. So basically, it is a case of unascertained goods, which is finally being ascertained later on by the seller, and it is shipped to you. So Rahul is merely ordering this particular model. Out of thousands lying in the warehouse, one phone will later be picked up, and therefore at the time of contract, it is unascertained goods. Only when the warehouse allocates one particular phone and packs it, it does become the ascertained goods. Is it correct or any doubt till here? When we order online goods, the payment someone is asking, Chaitanya is asking, okay, ma'am, as we order online goods, the payment may prompt or later, it may take time to transfer. So again, yeah, the payment is not a problem because we will study that in the definition. There is nothing mentioned about the payment. You can make the payment then and there, or you can defer. Ownership is not dependent on the payment terms. Again, I'm saying ownership is not dependent on payment terms, but again, ownership depends whether it is sale or agreement to sell. Okay, so that thing we have to understand. So if it is existing goods, obviously it is a case of transferring of ownership then and there. But in case of agreement to sell, it will be transferred later on. Next, Ria orders one farmhouse pizza from Domino's. What is the answer for this? What kinds of, or how can we classify it? Okay, someone is saying specific goods, someone is saying future goods. So again, firstly, keep in mind whether the goods are there or it will be, produced or manufactured later on. So when you are ordering, after that, someone will, start preparing your pizza. It's not ready-made. When you go to a bakery shop, some cakes are lying there. That is, ready to be delivered. But when you are ordering it, that you need a specific kind of thing and that shall be prepared and then later on delivered to you. That is a case of future goods. Okay, so here also it is a case of future goods because the pizza does not exist when you are placing the order. It will be prepared after receiving the order. Okay, so it's a case of future goods. Next, Meera ordered 10 kg Ashirwad atta. So it's ordered, so we can assume it is ordered online or maybe physical store, however. So you have ordered a particular thing. What is the case? Manufacturing goods, there is no term like manufacturing goods, at least in Sale of Goods Act. So these are existing goods, yes, because Ashirwad atta is already there, but it is not specific goods or it is specific goods. So again, we have to distinguish between specific and unascertained here. So the warehouse contains thousands of packets, but no particular packet is identified. So here it can be classified as unascertained goods. Okay. And finally, the unascertained goods are the ones which are finally ascertained. So there is no direct ascertained goods. Firstly, all the goods are unascertained and then they are ascertained. That is the way it flows. Next, Mirza ordered original painting number 145 signed by Mr. XYZ or any painter. What is this? Okay, Tahir is saying specific goods, Deepak is saying specific goods, Dakshita is saying specific goods because everything, okay, there is one more. Vishnu is saying it is contingent goods. So again, you have to be very specific why you are saying differently. Again, you have to identify whether the goods are existing or not. If they are existing, how can that, so there is one such painting, it is classified as specific goods. The goods are existing and you have specified also that I need this painting signed by this artist only. So if I am ordering a particular thing, nothing else can be sent to me. Okay, so therefore it is specific goods. Regarding contingency, there has to be a condition that it may be supplied on this condition, but there is no condition as such, so contingency is not there. Next, what is the definition of delivery? So section 2, clause 2 talks about delivery. And this delivery term you will see in Sale of Goods Act, Transfer of Property Act, and various other acts also. Because delivery simply means voluntary transfer of possession from one person to another. It never talks about, transferring of ownership. It just talks about transferring of possession. Possessions means कोई चीज पहले मेरे. Delivery means voluntary. Voluntary word simply says that it is free. It is with free consent. No one has forced you to do that. From one person to another means from seller to buyer, basically here in Sale of Goods Act. So what are the various forms of delivery or various types of delivery? Actual delivery, constructive delivery, and symbolic delivery. So this constructive delivery is also known as delivery by atonement or delivery by acknowledgement. These are the other terms which are used for constructive delivery. So what are these three kinds of delivery? The delivery which we normally understand is actual delivery. The phone which is with me, if I hand it over to you, so you can see the physical movement. From my hand, it has gone to your hand. So it is basically actual delivery, the physical movement of the goods. What is symbolic delivery? So suppose I have to give my car to you. So how will I do that? Will I have to, pick it up and give it to you? It's not like that. I'll just hand over the keys of the car to you. So symbolically, when I'm giving the keys to you, it symbolically means that I am giving my car to you. So I'm not selling it to you, don't worry. I'm just delivering it to you so that, you may park it somewhere, or you may just go for a ride for some time and just give it to me back. So that is symbolic delivery. So symbolic delivery is like when the original thing is there itself, but you have given some other symbols, the other token thing, saying that I am transferring the original thing to you. So that is symbolic delivery. जैसे घर की चाबी आपने किसी और को दे दी, जैसे रेंट पे जब देते हैं किसी को, तो you are just handing over the keys to the tenant. So that way, though the renting of house property will not come in the Sale of Goods Act, but now we are discussing delivery. So delivery तो कहीं भी आ सकती है. And pizza, these Zomato and Swiggy, they do the delivery thing for you, so they are known as delivery boys. So delivery करते हैं, इसका मतलब क्या होगा? They are earlier the possession of the things were with the sellers, and now the delivery boy has given it to you. So very easy to understand. The third one, that is constructive delivery. What is this constructive delivery? We will understand this by example. So let me check here whether we have the definitions. Okay, yeah. So actual delivery, physical handing over of the goods. Second is the constructive delivery. Here there is no physical transfer, but possession changes by acknowledgement. So how does this happen? Let us see this example. A warehouseman holding goods of A agrees. Suppose let us take an example of cycles. So I had ordered 100 EV, we will say EV for electric vehicles for my employees. I have ordered 100 electric vehicles for my, the price may rise in the future. So I have ordered it now. So 100 EVs, where will I park them till Diwali? So there is, there is a constraint. Where will I park all those things? So I have asked the manufacturer or the, seller, I've asked it to keep in his warehouse. Whatever rent is there, I'm ready to pay. Don't, shift that. Don't shift those EV to my place because I might not be able to take care of them. Deliver it to me at a future point of time. So delivery may differ. It is not that delivery has to be taken right now. You can defer the delivery. Okay? So delivery can be deferred also. So I have deferred the delivery at this point of time. So what I have done, but the possession is still there with the seller. So basically you have to understand who has the possession of the goods. Possession is still there with the seller or maybe some other person, but it has not come to me. It has not come to the buyer. That is what this constructive delivery means. मान लिया जाएगा delivery हो गई. Constructive का मतलब होता है it will be implied. मान लिया जाएगा delivery हो गई. हुई नहीं है पर मान लिया गया because in the warehouse without my permission, those 100 electric vehicles, those 100 EVs cannot be sold to anyone else. No one can use them. They are under my, authority. They are under my permission. Only when I allow, then only anything can be done to them. Okay, so therefore, this is a constructive delivery. Okay, so this is the example of constructive delivery. Next is symbolic delivery. This is delivered through some symbolic representation of goods like keys or documents, etc. किसी को घर बेचना हो तो आप उसके घर के डॉक्यूमेंट्स जो बनते हैं, सेल डीड जो बन गई घर की, वो उससे ट्रांसफर होगा, या घर की कीज आपने ट्रांसफर कर दी, दैट इज व्हाट. ओके, so these are the types of delivery we have talked about. Any question till here? Let me see the chat box. Okay, there is a question. So, ma'am, suppose seller told buyer your goods are deliverable state. So this deliverable state I will take. This is coming in the next slide. Don't worry. So that will be taken up. So just understand this thing, that delivery is of three types: actual delivery, constructive, and symbolic. So let me just quickly ask you. Suppose a fire broke out and the 100 electric vehicles which were there in the warehouse, they have destroyed. Now, who will bear the loss? So these kind of questions you will see in unit 3, but we are discussing it here only. Who will bear the loss? Yes, you have to understand who is me. You have to mention buyer or seller. So who is buyer? Basically, because in constructive delivery, the rule is the ownership has already passed to the buyer. Though the delivery you do not see, for the sale to happen, it is not that only actual delivery has to be there. Even sale can happen by constructive delivery. It may happen by symbolic delivery also. So all the three deliveries are valid to have a contract of sale. That is first thing you should understand. And when it is a case of sale, sale simply means owner is the buyer is the owner. So in that case, the risk has passed to the buyer. So even if the goods are lying with the seller, still whatever loss has happened, it is for the buyer to bear those losses. Seller will not do anything in that case. Okay, because you had asked him to keep the goods with the warehouse keeper, and it was not his fault. The goods were ready to be delivered. So I will just say the goods were in deliverable state. He was ready to deliver them, but you deferred the delivery. You said that keep the goods with you. So therefore, seller can say that buyer, you are responsible. You will bear the loss. I will not bear the loss now. So that is the case. Okay. Let us just proceed quickly. Deliverable state and quality of goods. So these are the definitions. Deliverable state means goods are in deliverable state when the buyer would, under the contract, be bound to take the delivery of them. So deliverable state basically means when the goods are ready to be delivered. जैसे हमने बोला था वैसा का वैसा आपने तैयार कर दिया गुड्स को और अब आप उनको बेचने के लिए रेडी हैं. तो suppose in those EV, I had specifically mentioned that I need the seats like this, I need lights like this, and accordingly the changes have been done. And now they are ready to be delivered. But still, when I'm saying that just keep it with yourself, even though I am ready to take the delivery, so constructive delivery has happened in that case. So I will be the owner. I means basically the buyer will be the owner here. So whenever the goods are in deliverable state, it simply means they are ready to be delivered. There is nothing to be done with the goods now. It is almost ready. It is finally ready to be used. And the buyer should take the delivery. He is bound to take the delivery. That simply means the risk and reward with the goods has been passed to the buyer. Even though he is not taking them, he will bear the loss. So that is the case. He cannot deny it later on. Next, the example is there here. If A contracts to sell timber and makes bundle thereof. So A has contracted to sell timber. Timber means simply the trees they have cut down and they have been, made into bundles. So they have been tied and, bundles have been created. That movie, Pushpa movie, you can just remember that. So bundles of, timber, chandan ki lakdi was there. The timber is not yet in deliverable state until made ready as required. So as and when they will be ready to be passed on, they can be considered as deliverable state. But jab tak unka bundling nahi kiya, because you cannot carry it one by one. So in order to, load it into the truck, it has to be properly tied and everything. So therefore, it is mentioned here whenever properly you have, wrapped the things, or how this should be finally transferred from one place to another. If you have done everything with respect to that, it is considered as ready to be delivered. Next. The definition of quality of goods, it's simply the section you can see here, 212. It says that quality includes, it is not defining what is quality. It is simply saying the condition and state. So if you can say that the condition of the goods is okay, I'm ready to purchase them. In that case, obviously, the quality of the goods is good. Okay, next. Document of title to goods. So we had discussed this in detail last time. So I think I can skip this one. This table we can study. So who issues these documents? Because these are the terms you might be checking up for the first time. So you should know whenever bill of lading is issued, this is issued by shipping company. Whenever goods are transferred from one place to another by ship, in that case, the shipping company, that is the master of the ship, he issues this bill of lading whenever the goods are being carried by ship or sea, through sea route you are transferring. Dock warrant is issued by the dock or the port authority. Then warehouse keeper certificate is given by the warehouse keeper always, and the railway receipt is given by the Indian Railways. If you talk about BILTI is given by the road transport mechanism, that is buses and all. Okay. A document of title does not itself transfers the ownership. We had studied this. Instead, it represents possession or control over the goods, enabling the holder to obtain delivery or, in many cases, transfer the constructive possession by transferring the documents. Okay, I'll take a quick example here uh, uh, because it is mentioned that this is why these documents are frequently used in international trade, banking, logistics. So suppose there are some goods which are transferred by ship, and the captain of the ship, he has given or he has prepared this bill of lading. This bill of lading, I have transferred it to Mr. X. Where am I? Let me just tell you that suppose I am in Mumbai. I have loaded the goods in ship, and the ship will deliver the goods to Vishakhapatnam. Okay, that at that port, Mr. X is there. So how can Mr. X receive the goods? Because there is no proper identification that he's the correct person or he's the genuine person to whom the goods should be sold. So he will show that document, this bill of lading. So I will post this bill of lading, or I can just, transfer, click the image of it and I can transfer it to the other person. The other person can show it on the doc, that this is the bill of lading which I have. I am actually the controller of the goods now. So whatever goods you have brought in, these should come into my control. That is what Mr. X will say, and that is the ultimate motive with which this document of title is created. He's not the owner of the goods, but it is just that with this document he will get the delivery of the goods. So it will, it is, that is what it is mentioned here, that it is not always that this transfers the ownership, but it is just that it will transfer the possession. Whosoever has this document will get the ownership. So suppose Mr. X loses it and it goes in the hands of Mr. Y. Can Mr. Y also claim the goods? Can Mr. Y also claim the goods? Yes, he can claim the goods. If goods are lost in between deliveries, Chaitanya is asking what happens if goods are lost in the delivery. Again, imagine who is seller, who is buyer, basically who is the owner. So the question again and again lies in the main topic, who is the owner? If seller is the owner, then so again you have to check whether it is a case of sale or agreement to sell. So everything you have to link and then you have to check. Okay. So we are just discussing delivery. We are not discussing whether the sale has been conducted or it is a case of agreement to sell, because it all depends on the terms and conditions of the contract, how everything was done in the contract. So that is why, and still there are few more definitions which will, help you to understand the concepts better. So this is the basic difference between document of title and document showing title. Document of title relates to possession or control of the goods, while document showing title relates to the ownership. So whosoever, so let me give you the example of document showing title. Suppose you have received a certificate for good handwriting. In school, you have got this certificate, or maybe you have scored first position or second position in school in academics. So that certificate shows that you are the person who has good handwriting, or you are the person who has obtained first rank. So that certificate is basically the document showing title, because it shows that you are entitled for whatever is written there. Suppose I hand over this, or you hand over that certificate wherein it was mentioned that best handwriting. So you have given that to your sister or brother. Whether by just transferring this document showing title to someone, will that mean that the other person also has good handwriting? It will not mean the same. So therefore, the document of showing title, or I can say document showing title, does not transfer the ownership like that. Okay, so this is just a document of this is just a document showing ownership. There are a lot of formalities which have to be done so that the ownership passes on to other person. But if you had document of title, there is only a difference of and showing, right? Here it is document of title, here it is document showing title. So a document which shows title is basically document showing title, just like you have your share certificate, any certificate given by the school or something like that. Okay, and if you have document of title, this means that you have the titlement of the titlement, or you have the right to receive the goods, you have the right to possess the goods. That is the basic difference. So it is normally used in the ordinary course of business to transfer the possession. एक जगह से दूसरी जगह goods भेजने होते हैं. In that case, how the other person will receive the goods? He has to show some document to prove that he is the authentic person, and therefore this document of title thing is there. Yeah. So next is transfer of this document. Usually, this document basically transfers the possession of the goods, and these are the examples: bill of lading, dock warrant, warehouse keeper certificate, etc. Okay. Mercantile agent. Who is mercantile agent? What is the definition of property, insolvent, price? All those things we have discussed. Property basically means the property, general property in the goods, basically the ownership. Whenever we will use the term property, we will say that this is the ownership of the goods. So normally, whenever property term will be used in Sale of Goods Act, it will mean that ownership, it is talking about the ownership. The property is passing, that means the ownership is passing. Insolvent we know, and then price and all. Okay, these questions we have already discussed last time. I'll go to the descriptive question. Let us quickly see who can answer this descriptive question. Vikas is the owner of a large apple orchard in Himachal Pradesh. In January, he entered into an agreement with Fresh Farm Retail Limited for sale of the entire apple produce expected from his orchard during the upcoming season. However, the contract specifically stated that the sale would take effect only if adequate snowfall occurred during the winter season, ensuring proper apple production. Unfortunately, due to abnormal climatic conditions, the region received very little snowfall that year, causing severe damage to the apple crop. Ultimately, only a negligible quantity of apples was produced, making commercial supply impossible. Fresh Farm Retail Limited sued Vikas for breach of contract and demanded compensation for non-supply of apples, decide the legal position of the parties. Just read it slowly again and then answer in the chat box. What is the final thing? Yeah, for the section, I have already said that the sections which are mentioned in your module or in this session today, that should be taken up. Okay, who is or what is the legal position of the parties? What kind of goods we are talking about? Soumyadeep, you can just write your query in the chat box. I'll unmute you at the end of the session if you still have any. So let us stick to this question. Let us see. Okay, Vishnu has already answered. It is agreement to sell contingent goods. He is saying. Ananya is saying specific goods. Samarth is saying, ma'am, contract is void. Dakshita is saying it is contingent goods. Okay. Why contingent? Okay, let us see. So there were some conditions mentioned, obviously, that if you have adequate snowfall, then only you will have successful crop production. So that was the condition underlying. And due to insufficient snowfall, the crop substantially failed. So these are the facts of the case. And basically, while writing the descriptive answer, you have to write this para facts of the case, wherein you just summarize the question. Okay, basically you summarize the content of the question here itself. Then you mention the relevant provision of the act according to you, whether it is contingent goods or future goods, whatever. So basically, here it is mentioned that contingent goods, they have defined contingent goods and what are the conditions for contingency to actual, finally, contingent goods, what are contingent goods, and then the property transfers actually, or what is the case with respect to the contingent goods. So here it is mentioned that where the contingency fails to occur, the contract becomes void because the goods never come into existence in the expected manner. क्योंकि वो condition satisfy नहीं हो पाई and therefore the contract has come to an end. ठीक है? What is, let us see the analysis. The contract in the present case was dependent upon an uncertain future event, namely adequate snowfall and successful crop production. The occurrence of snowfall was beyond the control of both the parties and formed the very basis of the agreement. Since insufficient snowfall prevented normal production of apples, the contingency failed. As a result, the contract relating to contingent goods cannot be enforced against Vikas. What is the final conclusion? The apple produce constituted contingent goods because their availability depended upon some future uncertain event. Since the contingency failed due to inadequate snowfall, the contract became void. Therefore, Vikas is not liable for the breach, because is not liable for the breach of contract, and Fresh Farms Retail Limited cannot claim the damages. That is why we have to understand. I mean, see, otherwise anyone could have filed suit and they might have recovered the damages and all. But here there was no fault of Vikas. Basically, he had already mentioned everything to the other party and he had mentioned the condition also subject to which he will sell the goods. So if that is not happening or that is not materializing, in that case no damages can be claimed from. So that is what is mentioned here. Any doubts here? Let me see. Yeah, so these, whether it comes under section 8 and all, we will see that. Yes, yes. Very right. Till this point also we can understand, and when we will study the other section, section 7 and 9, 7 and 8, that time also we will study. Okay. There's one more question. Quickly, let us take this up and then we can have a small break. Aman was preparing for civil services examination and urgently needed handwritten study notes prepared by a renowned faculty member. He entered into an agreement with Rohit, who promised to transfer his personal handwritten notes, lottery ticket, 50,000 cash, and a right to recover insurance claim money from an insurance company for a consolidated amount of 1,20,000. So all these four things will be, given to Rohit at a total cost of 1,20,000. That was the final, thing discussed between the buyer and seller. Later, Aman alleged breach of contract and claimed that all the above items constituted goods under the Sale of Goods Act. Rohit denied the claim and argued that some of the items did not fall within the legal definition of the goods. Examined the validity of Aman's contention. So whether he's right in saying that all these things are not goods, so good Sale of Goods Act is not applicable on these four items. Is that correct? On which item Sale of Goods Act is not applicable? Let me know that. On which item Sale of Goods Act is not applicable? Cash is not good, correct. Actionable claim, correct. Right to recover insurance claim, that is actionable claim. Lottery ticket, whether it is goods or not. Lottery ticket, it is movable thing, it is goods, but once you win the award and then it becomes a claim. At that point, it becomes a claim. Till it is lottery ticket, it is goods. So Rohit agreed to transfer. I'm not reading the facts of the case. What is the relevant provision? You have to mention in these kind of questions that it is related to section 2 clause 7, which defines goods, and then you can substantiate it a bit and give some more examples. What are goods? What are not goods? And all. Okay. So what is the final conclusion? This is the analysis. Handwritten notes, they are considered as movable property, therefore they constitute goods. Lottery ticket represents movable property and is generally treated as goods before the final draw. ठीक है, जब तक वो price announce नहीं होगा and all, it is considered as goods. 50,000 cash, since money is excluded expressly, so therefore it is not constituted as good. Then next, insurance claim is considered as goods. Okay. Then next, what is the final conclusion? We all can say that Aman's contention is partially correct. Everything is not goods. Whatever is mentioned here, partially he is right, partially he is not. So that is what. Okay, we can have a short 5 minutes break if you want, and then we can start with this meaning of contract of sale. What time is it? It's 3:17 by my watch, so we should be here by 3:22. Okay. Just a quick small break and then we will start. Okay, let's start. I hope all are back. So what is the meaning of contract of sale? See, this is very important because there are two terms which we need to thoroughly understand. One is goods, which we have already discussed, the definition of goods, the classification of goods. The next very, very important term for all of us to understand is what do you mean by sale or what is contract of sale? So contract of sale is a wider term. I'll just write it here also for all of you. So COS, I will just write COS for contract of sale. So it is a wider term because it includes sale and agreement to sell. It includes sale and agreement to sell, both. So both of these things are included in this contract of sale. So whether ownership is happening immediately, then also it is contract of sale. If it is happening at some future date, then also it is known as contract of sale. So in both the conditions, Sale of Goods Act is applicable. So that is the point. Now let us understand the definition of this contract of sale. Okay, so last time also we highlighted a few things to understand. So first is it should have all the essential elements of a contract because it says a contract of sale of goods is a contract. Okay. So it says that a contract of sale of goods is it has to have all the essential elements of a contract. So free consent has to be there, consideration has to be there, minimum two parties, lawful. It has to have legal relations between the parties, and then whatever you have studied, lawful object has to be there. All those things. Thereby, the seller transfers or agrees to transfer. So, first party is seller and the other party is buyer. So, there has to be two party. You cannot sell the goods to yourself. So, there has to be two different people. One is in the capacity of seller and the other is in the capacity of buyer. Then, here again, it is mentioned transfers or agrees to transfer. Basically, this denotes that it includes sale and agreement to sell. And the next thing which is mentioned here is it transfers property in the goods. That means it transfers the ownership. So it talks about the ownership. Next, what is actually being transferred or of what ownership of what is transferred. So it is basically talking about goods and this is all done at a price. So how many total things are there which we have to remember while studying this definition? First is it has to be a contract. Second, there has to be two parties. Basically, I'm writing two here because seller and buyer, two people are there. Then it talks about goods. It talks about property in goods. So it is not just that you are transferring goods, you are transferring ownership of the goods. That is what is very important here. And you are transferring it not free, you are transferring it for a price. That is again very, very important. I have missed this one. So transfer has to be there. So delivery has to be there. Whether it is actual delivery, constructive delivery or whatever. So delivery has to be there. So all these 5-6 elements, if all these are present, then it is known as contract of sale. Let me read it for you. A contract of sale of goods is a contract whereby the seller transfers or agrees to transfer the property in goods. So again, I'm saying it's property in the goods which is being transferred. It is not just goods. It is ownership right in the goods which is transferred. To whom? To buyer for a price. Okay. Then here it simply means that it includes both. It includes sale and agreement to sale. What are the basic essentials? We have all discussed these four things, right? So let me just clean this up. So wherever you are making your notes, just make it in your notes itself, just write it in your notes itself, that contract of sale, basically, it includes sale and agreement to sell both. Okay. So these are the things which you will find in any of the contract of sale. First of all, there will be two different parties. Goods and services it will talk about goods basically. And then it will talk about the payment terms. It will talk about the delivery, whether it has to happen then and there or later on or what all. And it will also talk about the warranties. Warranties and all we will discuss in the next chapter. Okay, so that is what you discuss when you are purchasing anything. Yes, competent parties is also there because it has all the main essential elements of the contract. Correct. Okay, one more point here to be noted is it can be absolute or conditional. It can be absolute means without any terms and conditions, sale can happen. And there can be some conditions also that then you will pay me full price, then only I will transfer the ownership. Or then you will pay me this much amount, 70% of the amount, I will transfer the ownership. Whatever, I mean, regarding price, you can have conditions. Regarding delivery, you can have conditions or other things also, like how it will be packed, how it will be, what all content should be there in the final product. That all you can specify. So it can be absolute or it can be conditional. Next, what do you mean by sale and what do you mean by agreement to sell? So this is very, very important even for the exam point of view. So just pay attention here. So both these definitions are contained in section 4, subsection 3. So sale is also mentioned here only, and this agreement to sell is also mentioned here only. So what is it containing? Sale, sale or that content with respect to sale, or what do you mean by sale? Basically, it is mentioned here. Then property in goods is transferred. See, the important thing again and again, which is written in these points, is the term property. It is not that goods are going only. It is the property in the goods which is transferred. Property, we all know that we mean general property, that is the ownership rights in the goods. And where is it defined? It is defined in section 2, clause 11, property. So property in the goods is transferred from seller to buyer immediately. So this is very, very important. When is the ownership transferring? So in sale, if we talk about sale, transfer of ownership is happening immediately. Nothing about payment terms is mentioned here, whether you are paying upfront or you are, making it a credit transaction. So nothing is mentioned related to price. So it is basically talking about if the terms and conditions are such that ownership will transfer immediately, then in that case, we will call it as sale. But when we say that the transfer of property will take place at a future time or subject to some conditions which will be fulfilled later on, so some future event or some future date is involved, in that case, it is a category which is known as agreement to sell. So that is the broad difference. Related to price, there is no difference. So in sale, you may have in cash sale or credit sale both. And in agreement to sell, it may happen that buyer has already made the full payment, but still the goods are to be produced and then they will be transferred. So it may happen anyways. So let us see this example. On 10th October, X agrees with Y that he will sell his car on 10th November. This is an agreement to sell and not an immediate sale. So whenever the car will be manufactured at that point of time, or whenever the shopkeeper, or whenever, I mean, this person will acquire the car, he will give it to the other person. Therefore, since a future date is involved, it is talking about the agreement to sell. Okay, let's move further. There will be some examples also for all of you to understand it in a better way. Firstly, let us discuss the difference between sale and agreement to sell. So here itself, wherever in module also, wherever this difference table is there, you have to mention one thing, that in case of sale, who is the owner? In case of sale, who is the owner? Buyer is the owner. If you have this point written with you, you will remember each and everything. And here with the agreement to sell, we have to write who is the owner. Seller is the owner here. So if you remember just these 2 points, everything will come quickly to you. So first, if you are saying buyer is the owner, in case of sale, obviously the property will be transferred immediately. In case of agreement to sell, it will transfer at a future date. Therefore, we are saying that seller is the owner for the time being, buyer is not the owner. So all the risk is borne by the seller only in case of agreement to sell. And in the case of sale, it is borne by the buyer. So whosoever is owner will bear the Whosoever is the owner will bear what? Will bear the risk or will bear the loss. Okay. Just let me put it again. Yeah, we were here. So what is the nature of the contract? Nature of the contract means has the contract completed or something is more to happen. So in case of sale, everything has been done, so it is executed contract. In case of agreement to sell, it is generally executory because some things are going to happen. Therefore, on a future date, it will materialize. What about the remedy of breach? If any of the party breaches, so let us assume buyer has not paid the price. So in that case, seller can sue for the price. For the full amount, he can make the claim. Then in case of agreement to sell, since the ownership is still with the seller, seller is the owner of the goods. So he cannot demand the full price. He can only claim the damages. Whatever loss has happened, whatever the opportunity loss has happened, he can claim that. Next is ability. This next point is regarding the liability for the loss. Obviously, whosoever is the owner will bear the loss. Here, the buyer is the owner, so buyer will bear the loss. In agreement to sell, seller will bear the loss. Regarding risk, who will bear the risk? Again, any kind of risk is pertaining to the owner only. So buyer will bear all kinds of risk which are related to with relation to transport, with relation to delivery, whatever. So whatever risk is there is that of the buyer. In case of the agreement to sell, it is the risk of the seller. What about the rights, nature of rights? So someone asked in the chat box also last in some time back, some person asked, what do you mean by jus in rem? So jus in rem, in case of sale, we have this kind of right, jus in rem. It's a Latin term. In agreement to sell, we have jus in personam. But what do you mean exactly by this? Okay, so jus in rem means right against the whole world. So you have the right to use the property anywhere or any against any person you want. So suppose if I have purchased this pen, I am the buyer, I am the owner, I can use it anywhere. So I can use it in my office. If I wish, I can gift it to someone. I can resell it also. So I have the right to use it as I like against the whole world. So that is what it is said here, jus in rem. However, jus in personam basically says that the seller will have right against a particular person only. So here seller is the owner, basically in agreement to sell, seller is the owner against whom he can have the rights. Only against the buyer he can have the rights. Against no one else he can. Or similarly, in the case of buyer, he can only ask seller because the complete agreement, the complete thing has not happened. It is still in executory phase. They cannot have the whole rights with them. They do not have the whole rights with them. So therefore, they can just file case against each other. So in agreement to sell, it is jus in personam, while in case of sale, it is jus in rem. Normally, if you see in the Indian Contract Act, whenever a contract is made, suppose I am the employer, you are employee, so both of us can file suit for each other if there is a breach of contract. So since we have right against each other only, therefore it is known as jus in personam. I have right against a particular person only. I cannot file suit on anyone else. So that is the case. That is the term which is used here. Next is right of resale. Obviously, a owner only can resell the goods. So here seller will not be able to resell, buyer will be able to resell the goods. In case of sale, we are studying this. In case of agreement to sell, seller may resell. Okay, so this is from the point of view of seller. What rights does a seller have? Next, now this insolvency is very important, and who is becoming insolvent? That is also very important. So any question till here? Let me see that. Okay, no question till Is my screen visible? There was some network issue here. Okay, just a second. Okay, so we were studying this sale versus agreement to sell. Here, the last 2 points are very important because this creates a lot of confusion. Rest, all the other points are very simple and easy to understand. So I will just write here again one thing which we were discussing. Just a second. Okay, is my screen visible now? Because there is some issue, I guess. Just a second. Are you able to see this? Seller is owner or buyer? Buyer is the owner. Here we are writing buyer is the owner. Mhm. Again, we are writing in case of agreement to sell, seller is the owner. Mhm. Okay, now let us quickly understand. One point again I have mentioned here, risk follows the ownership. So whosoever is owner will bear the risk. So everything will be discussed in that context only. So let us understand the last 2 points. The second last point says that seller has become insolvent. So seller has become insolvent. So first thing you all must understand what happens when one person becomes insolvent. So when a person becomes insolvent, court appoints one more person, which whose name is basically the official assignee. Whatever is mentioned here, I'll just write OA, official assignee, or you can say liquidator or insolvency professional. Nowadays, we call him insolvency professional. So that person is appointed. This person is appointed by the court. Why court is appointing this person? Court appoints him to take into custody all the assets of the insolvent person and sell them, and then whatever recovery is done, distribute it among the debtors, basically. So suppose there is a liability of say 1 crore, and the assets are just 25 lakh of assets are there. Therefore this person has become insolvent because he do not have sufficient assets to pay off his liability. So what this person will do, I'm just giving you a general example what this person may do. So he may transfer all these assets to any of his relatives or anyone, saying that I don't have any assets. So since I don't have any asset, I cannot pay off anyone. So even if I am declared insolvent, nothing can happen to me. Therefore, in order to safeguard these situations, court at that point of time appoint an independent person who takes the custody of the assets of that particular person. So let us assume seller has become insolvent. Whatever things he had, all that have been taken under the control of the official assignee. That person has taken the control, liquidator or official assignee or insolvency professional, whatever you call him. And what is his role now? To sell off those existing assets and pay off whatever liabilities he had. But let us now understand it in the context of this sale and agreement to sell. What is happening? In case of sale, whatever goods were there, he has already sold. Let us assume we are talking about this, let us talk about this mobile. He has sold a mobile to one of the buyers. He has already got the payment, and now this seller has become insolvent. So seller has become insolvent, official assignee of the seller has been appointed. He will take control of the existing asset. He cannot go and take the assets of, he cannot take the custody of those assets which are already sold out. So even the buyer, whosoever has purchased those mobiles from this seller, the official assignee cannot take the goods from those person. That is the thing which is mentioned here. The official assignee cannot take the goods from the owner of the goods, basically from the buyer. He cannot take the goods from the buyer. But in the case of agreement to sell, what he can do, he can take the control of the goods. Now just assume I have taken this mobile from the this seller on sale on that approval basis. There is again a concept of sale on approval basis. So what does this sale on approval means? I have taken this mobile. I'm saying to the seller, I'll show it to my papa or mummy. I'll show it to my father or mother, and when they agree to it, then only I will purchase. So I'm just taking it home. I'll get their consent, and then I will finally give you this mobile. I'll make the payment to you. That is how I have taken this mobile. Suppose. Meanwhile, what happened that this seller has become insolvent. This official assignee is appointed, and now he will find out where all his assets are lying or where all his goods are lying. So whatever is there in the shop, that will be in the custody of the official assignee. And wherever he's still the owner, wherever the seller is still the owner. So for this particular mobile, which he has sold to a buyer on sale or return basis, basically, so in that case, the buyer has not become the owner. The seller is still the owner. So wherever ownership is still with the seller, the official assignee has the right to recover it from the other parties. So he will take away this mobile from me and he will sell it and finally pay off the liabilities of the seller. That is what is meant by this insolvency of seller, where he will get the possession, where he will not get the possession. Are we okay with this point? Is there any confusion? Just let me know so that we can understand the second part of it. Okay, so I think there's no doubt. Next, insolvency of the buyer. Now again, assume buyer has become insolvent. Buyer has become insolvent, then who will be appointed? Official assignee of buyer will be appointed. What will be his role? His role will be to take the assets in control and finally pay off the liabilities. That is the role of the official assignee. In case of sale, what will happen? Buyer is the owner of the goods. So even if he has not made the full payment to the seller, he will still control the goods. I'm again saying, even though he has not made full payment to the seller, he will still be in control of the goods. This point is very important because you will say that a seller is unpaid seller. He can have his own rights. But for the time being, official assignee will control the goods. He will not give it to the seller. Seller has different rights. We will study. Seller has a right of lien. He has a right to stop in transit and all. And then he can finally file a suit on the buyer. So that is the third right which he has, or he has a right to resale and all that rights. But for the time being, if it is considered as a sale, in sale, because buyer is already the owner, whether or not he has paid full amount, he will be considered as the owner and official assignee will have full control over the goods. Okay, that is what is meant here. Since he has already become insolvent, obviously full price will not be paid to the seller. Only a partial amount will be paid to the seller. Just like in accounts, you might have done the entries for insolvency. 50 paisa in a rupee is paid to the other person or something like that. No, so that kind of thing happens here. Next, in the case of agreement to sell, what happens? Now assume in case of agreement to sell, again buyer has become insolvent. So buyer has become insolvent even though he was not the owner of the goods. So official assignee of buyer cannot have the control over the goods because the actual owner of the goods was the seller. So he has to transfer the goods to the seller. That is what is meant here in the last 2 points. Is there any confusion here? Otherwise, we can move on to the next slide. Can we move on to the next slide quickly? Okay. Just let me. Yeah, so this is the next definition or distinction which we have to read. Sale is different from hire purchase. What is hire purchase? Basically, you are not purchasing, but you are hiring it for some time. And then after a time period, you have the right to purchase it also. So first, let us understand what do you mean by hire purchase. I want to establish a factory. I want to set up a factory wherein I will produce a particular kind of noodles and I will sell in the market. I have the startup idea with me. But since I am not sure whether this will be marketable or whether I'll make profits out of it, what I do is I do not purchase the machinery. I basically hire it from someone. So I hire the machinery I run those machinery for 4 5 years, and if I think I'm making good profits, I will have the right to purchase these machinery because I've already given the rent for it for some time. So this does not happen at the end. You have to do it in the beginning itself. So either you are entering into a rent agreement or you are entering into a hire purchase agreement. So if you are entering into a hire purchase agreement, what will be the position? So if I am entering into a hire purchase, my position is basically that of a tenant kind of. So I'll be the hirer. So I will be a bailee. So bailee is a person who keeps the good of which he is not the owner. He has to maintain the goods in good condition so that he can return it to the original person whenever he wants. So that is what it is mentioned here. Hire purchase is a kind of bailment. This bailment and all you will study in the Indian Contract Act. So bailment is a case wherein some goods are delivered to the other person. The other person does not become the owner of the goods. He simply enjoys it for some time, and then he has the duty to return the goods back to the other person from whom he has taken. So hire purchaser and hire purchasee or hirer is the term which we normally use here. So let us discuss the differences. So regarding the ownership, who becomes the owner, whether the ownership transfers or not. In sale, obviously the ownership transfers, but in case of hire purchase, we are just using it on rent. So basically for the time being, the hire purchaser is not the owner, but he has the option to purchase it on the last installment. So at the time of entering into the contract, it is mentioned there that after 10 years, I will have the right to purchase. So again, it is optional. If he wants, he can purchase. If he does not want, he will deny that offer. So that is what it is mentioned in the first point. Second point, what is the position of the parties? So buyer here becomes the owner. Hirer remains just like a bailee. So bailee means he will have just the right to enjoy the goods, to enjoy he can he can use the machines for production purposes, but he cannot sell those machines. He does not have the ownership. He cannot claim the depreciation on the machines. So that is why he is just the bailee, and on final payment maybe he can become the owner. Next, what about the termination? Can this contract terminate? Can this contract end? So, in case of sale, buyer cannot terminate at his own will because already he has become the owner. Everything has happened. In case of hire purchase, since it is a kind of rent agreement, you can say it can be terminated in between also. Suppose new technology comes up, why will we keep on using the old machine? So, we can terminate it at any point of time. Next is regarding transfer of title. So buyer can pass a good title. So transfer of title basically means, can the buyer sell or resell basically the goods which he has already purchased? Now can he resell it to someone else? Yes, he can. So buyer can pass on the title. He can pass on the ownership rights to someone else also. But hirer, since he himself is not the owner, he cannot transfer the title to anyone else. So only the owner can pass on the better title. Otherwise, he cannot pass. Next is resale. So again, it is mentioned that buyer can resell, the hirer cannot resell finally. But if he becomes the owner, then he can obviously resell the goods. Okay, just let me clear this thing. Next, we are studying about this sale versus contract for work and labor. Sometimes it happens that we hire some person, or maybe we hand over or we outsource some work to other person. So that kind of arrangement is basically known as contract for work and labor. Let me just quickly tell you the example first, and then we will study the theory. This gold supplied to a goldsmith for preparing an ornament. There is a jeweler. A person has approached to the jeweler that I want this kind of necklace. So the jeweler basically knows a goldsmith who can prepare this kind of necklace. So he asks him to prepare the gold that ornament. He gives him all the things like gold, diamond, whatever is required. He has given him those things. Now goldsmith is preparing those things. So whenever goldsmith has prepared an ornament or the necklace and he hands it over back to the jeweler, it is not a sale of goods. It is only that he has worked on it. He has simply applied his skills, and he can only charge for the labor charges. Basically, he can only claim his labor charges or the amount of work which he has done. We cannot ask for the amount of whole necklace, that means including the valuable gold and diamond and all. We cannot ask that, obviously. So that is what is mentioned here. Whenever you are delivering something to other people for preparing that or doing some labor on it or applying some skills on it, it is not a case of sale of goods. So a contract of sale exists where goods are sold or are to be sold for a price. There is no sale of goods as such, and the real substance is doing of work or exercise of sales. It is a contract for work and labor. Okay. So what is the key test? It is the substance of the contract, that is transfer of goods or exercise of skills or work. So any person who has just applied his skill or work, or actually he has delivered some kind of goods. So that is what you have to check under this contract for work and labor. How contract of sale is made? So basically section 5 tells you that how you can enter into a contract. You can give the offer and then price will be set, and then it will be accepted to the by the other person. Immediate delivery can happen, immediate payment can happen with future delivery, immediate delivery can happen with immediate payments. Delivery or payment both can be done in installments. Delivery or payment both can be done on a future date. So all these different permutation and combinations can be there to make this contract of sale happen. So anything can be there, and accordingly, the ownership will transfer. What about the consideration? We already know money consideration, price should be there. What is the subject matter? It is given. The subject matter in the contract of sale may be existing goods or future goods. So this is contained in section 6, which talks about these two things. If these future goods are dependent on some contingent event, then they are known as contingent goods. And for future or contingent goods, we have this agreement to sell. Next, goods perishing before making the contract. Section 7. So this is a very good topic to be asked in the exam in the form of case studies. So just pay attention to this. There is a contract for sale of specific goods. The contract is void if the goods without the knowledge of the seller have already perished at the time when the contract is made. So example already we had discussed in the earlier session. Again, I am taking this example. A agrees to sell B 50 bags of wheat stored in the godown, but the goods had already been destroyed without seller's knowledge. So again, there were some specific goods, but they had destroyed without the seller's knowledge, and therefore there is no subject matter on the basis of which the contract was happening. Since there is no subject matter, the contract itself is void. Okay. Next, goods perishing after the agreement to contract. So this is after, whenever you have entered into agreement to sell, it has not converted into sale. Meanwhile, before, during that time period, I mean, something has happened and the goods have perished. Let us take an example. A agrees to sell B 100 tons of tomatoes to be grown on his land. Before delivery, the crop fails. So a contract was already entered into. That means agreement to sell had already taken place. But before delivery, the crop had failed. The contract becomes void due to supervening impossibility. So there is a case of void subsequently. Earlier, it was a case of void ab initio because there were no subject, there was no goods or there was no subject matter. But here, since the things were decided, but the goods have perished after entering into the agreement, therefore, it is a case of supervening impossibility. No one could do anything. Next, how this price is determined. In the last session also we discussed about this. So price is generally fixed by the contract between the buyer and seller, mutual agreement between them, or in any other general manner as they like. So basically it is fixed by the contract. While entering into the contract, they mention the terms, or otherwise it is fixed by the dealings between the parties, how they are frequently dealing with each other. So that is the core thing on the basis of which it is done. Because if we are dealing again and again with the same person, we might get some discounts also. So that is possible. If the price is not determined by any of these models, the buyer must pay a reasonable price. So reasonable price is normally the market price, normal thing which if anything is not decided, then whatever the reasonable price is, you have to pay that. What is the important thing to be understood here? The reasonable price in the question of fact depends on the circumstances. So there is no one price. I mean, we cannot say that this is always a reasonable price. It depends on different market conditions, on different circumstances. So maybe some product was sold at some rate at one point of time and maybe at a different rate at another point of time. So at both the conditions, that may be the reasonable price. So that is what is mentioned here. Next, this is the last topic for all of us, price fixed by third party valuation. So section 10 comes up where both the parties, buyer and seller, they are not fixing the price, but they are relying on a third party to make the valuation. So suppose X and Y, they are saying that Mr. Ram will do the valuation. Whatever he says, we will have that price and that will be the final price and we will pay that. So suppose it happens that Mr. Ram says that why you are bothering me? I am not there in your contract. So don't ask me to do the valuation. I am not interested. So if Mr. Ram is not agreeing to do the valuation, what will happen to this contract? So this contract will become void because the main condition of this contract was that the other person, the third party, will fix the value for the contract. Since the value is not decided, the contract becomes void. Now what will happen? They may hire another valuer for that purpose. Or maybe they can decide the price amongst themselves. So whatever the case may be, that can happen. This is what is mentioned in the first point. So I'm reading it full, where the goods are to be sold at a price fixed by third party if the third party does not or cannot make the valuation. So does not means he's not interested to make the valuation. Cannot means he wants to, but there are some complications. He is not able to finally give the solution for that. So that is what it is mentioned here. The agreement becomes void. For the time being, it becomes void. Next point here it is, if one party prevents the valuation. Now it may happen that, suppose I want Mr. Ram to value the gold bangles. So the gold bangles valuation will depend again because the rate of gold keeps on fluctuating. So if I am the seller, I will ask Mr. Ram to wait for 2 more days because I know after 2-3 days, the rate of gold will be higher. So I am preventing the valuer from valuation. So where buyer or seller, any of the parties, they are preventing the valuer, they are not allowing the valuer to value. So the first point was valuer himself is not doing the valuation. Second point says that valuer wants to value, but either of the party, buyer or seller, they are preventing him from making the valuation. In that case, the party who is at fault will be liable for the damages. So here, because of seller, the valuation took place at a later point of time and the value increased. So whatever the value has increased, that will be a kind of damages which he will have to pay. If the buyer has received and appropriated the goods, he must pay a reasonable price. Suppose the valuation has not happened at all and buyer has taken some goods. So I had asked valuer to value 10 bangles. But buyer has already taken one bangle because he wanted to show it to his friends or maybe at family, wherever he wanted. And I have given the other 9 bangles. So the valuer can value and accordingly I can put up a approximate price for the 10th one also. So, but the valuation could not happen due to some reason. So whatever goods have already been taken by the buyer, reasonable price, that means the market price or what, that has to be paid by the buyer. He cannot say that since the valuation was done, the contract is void. He cannot say that since he has already taken the goods, he has used the goods, he has appropriated the goods. That is what is written here. He has received and appropriated the goods. In that case, he is bound to pay. That is the thing here. So this is what you need to understand. This is the example. I think we can take up these questions and then we can open the session for the questions if you have any. So delivery means, all of you are requested to give your replies in the chat box, please. Option B. Delivery means transfer of ownership or transfer of possession. Yes, it is transfer of possession, correct. And can I ask what is the section number for this? Can anyone tell me the section for delivery? Section 2, clause 2. Very nice. And how many types of deliveries are there? 22. You cannot write 22. 2 bracket 2. Okay. Vishnu, you are wrong. Okay. So how many? Okay. You have mentioned how many types of deliveries. Vishnu has mentioned how many types of deliveries. 3 types of deliveries are there. What are they? Actual, constructive, and the third one is symbolic. Okay, let me quickly go to the next question. Handing over the keys of warehouse is a kind of, which kind of delivery I mean? See, that was very simple. Next. Question number 8. A mercantile agent can, what can he do? Can he only buy the goods? Can he only sell the goods? Can he sell or pledge the goods? Or he can only transport the goods? See, we have not discussed the rights of a mercantile agent, but normally whatever agent can do, that is simply the rights of the mercantile agent. So in Sale of Goods Act, what is the role of a mercantile agent? Basically, he is there to do all the things which a seller can do. Okay, so that is a mercantile agent. So he can even buy, he can even sell the goods, he can pledge the goods also. So anything he can do. All these things he can do. Yes. So again, this you will see in the chapter 3, I guess, that will have this particular topic again. Price under the act means. Price under the act means money consideration. That was quite easy for all of you to answer. And may I know the section number? Quickly, section 2, clause, which clause? Specifically, you have to mention clause 10. That is correct. So 210 is for price. Okay, can goods be sold partly in cash, partly in kind? Can goods be sold partly in cash, partly in kind? Yes. Some or the other money consideration has to be there. Okay, next question. An agreement to sell becomes sale. At what point of time it becomes? That is the question. What are the options? Let us see. When buyer pays the advance, when goods are inspected, when the conditions are fulfilled, or when the seller agrees. So obviously C is a wider thing which is mentioned. And in the definition also it is mentioned that agreement to sell will convert into sale at when the conditions are fulfilled. So obviously C is the correct answer. We can have this descriptive question also. Okay, you can all read this question, and if anyone has any doubt, you can unmute and you can ask. If there is any query, please unmute and you can ask. We will take up this last question and then we will wind up. And if anyone has the answer for this question, you can simply let me know. By unmuting, you can answer, or maybe in the chat box you can write. A agrees to buy a new TV from a shopkeeper for 30,000, partly in cash and partly in exchange of old TV set. Is it a valid contract? I think this is easy. What all sections you can refer? Whatever sections I mean, you can refer the definition of goods, then partly in cash, partly in kind, that thing also you can mention. Yeah. Okay, most of you have given the correct answers. One more question, quickly. A agrees to sell B 100 bags of sugar arriving on a ship from Australia to India within next 2 months. Unknown to the parties, the ship has already sunk. Does B have any right against A under the Sale of Goods Act? And which section is applicable? Let me. Which section is applicable? So it is regarding goods are perishing before or after making the contract. So section 7 or 8, which one will come? Yeah, contingency goods, obviously you can mention one part will be contingency goods and the other part will be, based on section 7 or 8. Which one? So someone has already given the answer. Yes, section 8. Okay, so I'm just stopping sharing the screen. If you have any doubts, you can unmute, otherwise we can wind up the session.
Dear students, if you are having any query, you can raise your hand. I think, Divya, there is no query. So we can wind up the session. Dear students, today we have completed unit number 1 of the chapter 3, that is Sales of Goods Act 1930. And on Sunday and Monday, we will finish another unit, that is Condition and Warranties. And In the previous class also, I mentioned that RTP for business laws has been uploaded. Please see the questions of chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3 अभी आप छोड़ दीजिए क्योंकि it will take time to recognize that which questions are from unit 1. So you can leave the Sales of Goods Act from the RTP, but complete unit 1 line wise, word wise, question wise from the study material thoroughly. Okay, and Sunday we will start our unit 2, that is condition and warranties, and most probably by next week the foundation results are coming. This is not confirmed, but most probably it can happen. So within 24 hours of the result we will upload the suggested answers for the same. So you will get one more publication of BOS to practice the questions of this paper, of all the papers of foundation. So all these publications are, be it your RTP, be it your suggested answers, be it your previous mock test papers, model test booklet, all these publications are very important for practice part. You are attending the live virtual class, you are reading the study material, concept from the study material, but if you are not doing the practice, you will lack in the preparation. Okay, so today notes and assignments for the today's class we have uploaded on the BOS website. You can practice the questions covered in the notes, and as well as the some questions are there in the assignments as well. Please fill the feedback once the class is finished. Thank you, Divya.
My pleasure,
Thank you,
ma'am.
dear students.
Thank you. Bye, students.
Yes, Friday there is a leave holiday, so we will meet on Sunday. Yes, thank you.
Recording stopped.